Welcome to RMM Help. In this session we provide a brief overview of how single client, shown in RMM as the default client, operates in RMM. I'll go to Administration and Client Management, and you can see that we have one of 5 records here, and the first record is default internal client. If you only run as a single client operation, so no external clients, then you don't have to do anything for the operation of RMM. RMM support staff will set up the default client, and instead of this saying one of a number of records, it will be one of one. So all of your operation is through a default client. Nevertheless, it's worth me showing at this point where the client interface is shown throughout the RMM operation. And the easiest way to do that is for me to go back to the administration section and take the code files, and our first code file that opens is actually for sites. And what RMM have done is we've added a client column in our sites, and those that operate multi-client will choose from a drop-down list. For those that don't, you will have a default internal client appended automatically every time you add a site into the system. So clearly, if what we're doing is associating the default client with a site, wherever that site appears, which is typically in assets and work, we are identifying that as owned by the default client. So if I go into asset, you'll notice that if I scroll across in the asset summary list, we've got a column for client, and all of these would be default client if you run single client, and the asset detail list would also be default client. I'll open one of these assets for a default client, and it's a standard asset detail form, but in the right hand corner you can see that it says default internal client. So when we log a job in the help desk, whether that's for a real asset or a generic asset, we are also going to be identifying those by our default internal client. So if I open one of these jobs, again it's the standard work processing form, and on the top right hand corner we've got our default internal client. So that's how single client operation works. You don't have to do anything in the system. And if I go back to home, where we have our drop down list with clients, the default is all clients, which is the default client, so that is always filtered with your data. So that concludes the summary of single default client operation in RMM.